Hey guys and gals, Shane Stevenson here at the Buffalo Naval Park, and for today's video, let us file this under the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. Now, when I started here, you know, you're just speaking to people, doing your own research, and they're like, oh yeah, the deck houses of the Sullivans are aluminum, the deck is steel, the hull is steel, and you just kind of accept that. Well, so after 6 years of walking on the Sullivans, and by the Sullivans, it finally hit me to actually test that theory out. And this would have been a wonderful opportunity to look at some of those earlier Fletchers, like Fletcher, O'Bannon, Nicholas, DeHaven, Jenkins. All right, you get the point. That's why it would be so nice to have one of those earlier Fletchers here, because they had, to my understanding, all aluminum deck houses. They would have been laid down in 41, coming into service early 42, February, March, April, May 42, if I'm getting that right. But by the time the Sullivans comes into service, all right, she's getting laid down in late 42, and of course commissioned in 43. What was also happening by that time was aluminum was becoming a scarce commodity. We also see that on the Clevelands. I believe early Clevelands, Cleveland, Columbia, we were all aluminum deck houses. Then by the time you get to, say, the mid-60s, CL-65, CL-66, again, now some have been in combat, and they're doing wartime modifications based on what the captains and crews report. And they decide to add steel. Now, of course, for the Sullivans, we have to have take into account post-war modifications. But the important thing here, eureka moment, is let's take a look at my handy-dandy flashlight, which has a magnet on it. So I did this earlier in the day, nice and stable. We're on the aft deck house, right near the double ladder. Steel. Now again we see riveting. Hopefully you can see that as well. Does not stay. So there's a little vent shaft. Stays. Aha. Riveting. Nothing. Riveting. Nothing. Let's come forward a little bit. Weld. Now we're in the midship's deck house. Welding. Stays. Weld. Well, the deck house, this is the post-war edition here. one of them stays. Now we come back to where the original deck would have been, and you saw videos with me and Tim from the kid talking about this whole bulkhead here. This whole deck house was expanded. What is that, about 5 feet or so? All right. Now we're going back to the original beam of the deck house. Welds. Nothing. We come through the little breezeway, or come through the breezeway. See a weld. Nothing. So I have concluded with very clear and obvious evidence that any part of the deck house that has riveting to it is aluminum. Anything that had weld to it is steel. So now, this forces me to change the narrative. To say that, by the time, again, we were originally going to be the USS Putnam. So by the time the Sullivans laid down in 42, launched in April of 43, commissioned in September of 43. By that time, aluminum is scarce, and they do a composite. Aluminum and steel. And that's why it would have been very nice to be able to go to a museum ship like the earlier ones I was mentioning, Jenkins, DeHaven, Fletcher, O'Bannon, Nicholas. To actually do a physical comparison. So, new narrative here, everybody. Composite, aluminum, and steel deckhouse on the later Fletchers, presumably as aluminum was becoming a scarcer and scarcer commodity. Next up, I will walk around the Little Rock. Because again, Cleveland and Columbia, I believe, were aluminum, and the earlier ones, not just those two. Cleveland's were aluminum by CL65, CL66. Aluminum again is shortened for all ships, and they go to steel. Caveat though, our superstructure is full post-war. There might be a spot or two that I can find. Maybe. Anyway, thanks so much for your support. To be filed under the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And I'm so glad I've actually taken the few minutes to do this and to pass that information on to you. Thanks so much for your continued support, and we'll see you again soon.